guys, welcome to episode number 37 of Kayak Fishing Obsessed, the KFO show. If you love kayak fishing or fishing in general, there is no better place to be on the planet than right here, right now. I have two brothers fishing, and we're going to be talking tonight about how to dominate August kayak bass fishing. It's an interesting month, right? It's a transitional month. The beginning of the month is going to look different than the end of the month. And where are those fish at? What lures do we have hooked up? And I'm not just interested in what Gramps and Jeremy have to say, which I am also, but I want to hear from you as well. So if you're on the live, be prepared to bring the heat and share what it is that you're using and you're out there catching fish with. I got some news and announcements for you. We have some upcoming guests coming down the pipeline. I booked Alex Folguera, Drew Gregory. I got the Knucklehead winners for Team Wendell. They're going to be on, all five of us, so that's going to be fun. I got the Bearded Paddler. So I'm booking some sick guests for us, and I'm actually going to be a guest on the Alex Rudd podcast on the 25th of this month. So if you listen to him, you'll hear this voice again. So I apologize. I'm excited for the podcast, guys. We're at 750 listens an episode on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. And I just found out with a little bit of research, that's in the top, the KFO show is the top 10% of all podcasts. It's kind of crazy. So if you get more than, this is the data I found, if you get more than 443 downloads, you're in the top 10%. And if you get more than 1,083, you're in the top 5% of all podcasts out there. So we are well on our way. Give it a few months. I think we'll be over 1,100. We'll be in the top 5%. So if you're out there listening, please reach out to me. I've had a lot of you reaching out to me from the podcast. So I'd love to hear from you. You can find me through Instagram. I respond primarily on YouTube. So come on over. Also, we have the Cast Tray giveaway tonight. If you become a channel member of Wendell Fishing, not only you're going to get a variety of perks from badges and custom emojis, behind the scenes analytics of my particular page, and early access videos. I'm also going to send you a $10 gift card to castcray.com. I think the lowest membership level is like $2 a month. So I would absolutely love your support. Please consider that. All right. Enough. That's all the news and announcements I have for you. Let's go ahead and bring the heat. Gramps, Jeremy, guys, welcome to the show. How you guys doing?
Go ahead, bro.
What's up, everybody?
Oh, you guys are representing. We got Hummingbird in your head. We got Monster Bass and Knucklehead over here, Jeremy. I love it. So, how has and Harley Davidson for Gramps? I love it. Well, guys, tell me how the beginning of your August have been for. Well, let's back up real quick before we hop into the juice, because I got a bunch of questions around that. Gramps, tell me about, because you finished up. We'll talk about the Knucklehead really fast, and I'm going to get an update on mine because it's the last month for me. However, your team is solidified. Am I incorrect or correct there?
That is correct. I got all five of the team locked in.
Ooh. Well, tell us about them.
So we have fan favorite Liz, who's out here in the chat tonight. We have our next slot was filled by Antoine Hayes, who is a local hammer here in Indiana. It seems like he was on the podium in every tournament for the first, 6-8 weeks. And then Jeremy took the third slot.
Heck yeah.
And the fourth slot was filled by a Twitch streamer named Solidus, his name is Alex Sterling. He lives in North Carolina, I believe. But Jeremy and I met him at the national championship last year through our good friend OEF5, who also is a Twitch streamer. And so, yeah, we have a very, very solid team of folks. Liz is down in Florida, him in North Carolina, and then the three Hoosiers in their old towns round up the rest of the team. And I actually, 4 out of the 5 of us fish in old towns. And if I have to bring a paddle kayak for Liz, then she'll be the 5th.
Team Old Town.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, congratulations on your team there. Real quick, for those who may be coming in for the first time to the live show or for the podcast, give you a recap of what the Knucklehead is.
So Knucklehead is a bass fishing series run by KBF. The goal is it's a fun because it's a charity event. It's a teaching platform for those to learn catch, photo, release, whether you're fishing from the bank or from a kayak. Kind of teaches the rules of KBF, the process, $15 entry fee versus the standard $50 entry fee for the state challenge series at KBF.
Right.
But those you can win a lot more money and qualify for the national championships and stuff like that too. And Morgan says we need somebody to help us pay our light bill. No, this is just called proper. It's called proper YouTube lighting when it comes to doing YouTube and streaming. So we're set up with the proper white lights, cameras, and gear. And and then Wendell's got the traditional YouTube talking head, background lit with some matching colors, so forth and so on. But yeah, Knucklehead's it's a learning platform. But once you kind of get used to the rules and the way that Knucklehead works, you could go out and fish any KBF or mostly any tournament on Fishing Chaos and have a good understanding of the rules and how the process works. Yeah. Because your fish are being judged officially by KBF judges, and they'll walk you through some guidance and make sure you have the mouth closed and things like that too. But it's a learning series, but yeah, it's leading to a lot of fun. Each team is comprised of a YouTuber captain, bringing in their audiences and fans to fish for them, or even fish to come fish in the fan fish off and earn a spot on a team to knock all the rest of everybody out too. So what it all leads to is Veterans Day weekend, the Hero Cup, and a huge boondoggle of folks meeting everybody and having a great time. The tournament's going to be a fun side pot of the whole thing, but the gathering and the meeting of all of the people is what's going to be the most significant, fun part of the whole weekend.
I love it. And I had Chad Hoover on last week, and this comment over here makes me want to talk about real fast. Mike M. He said, I didn't make it, trying to qualify in Team Stark this month.
Yep.
He says, well, we'll see. I'm currently in first with 84 inches. There's a lot of month left, so I'm sure you'll be able to call out some fish and get some big ones. But he told me, Chad mentioned on the show that there's actually he added 2 more teams. And so here, I don't know, maybe next month? I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how that went, but if you didn't win a chance on the team that you wanted to be on, there's going to be total of 3 wild card teams, one for the fan fish on from Friday, and then 2 more wild card teams coming up. So if you still want an opportunity to be on the team, stay tuned. And because I'm sure if you've been trying, you're going to get an email about it. It's going to show you how to do all of that and get set up. So a lot, like Gramp said, there is a $10,000 prize pot. To me, well, one, I'm not, and Gramp isn't even eligible to receive that, even if we won. Yep. But I feel like all that's kind of background noise for me, because it's for me, it's getting to meet a lot of the people that are in the chat right now. For me, I've never met you, Gramps, although I feel like we talked a lot. Jeremy, there's a smorgasbord of people that I spoke with, had on the show, never met them, never met Chad, Fluke Master, Larry Melton Jr. I mean, I've never been ICAST, and so that's honestly what I'm pumped about the most. So I'm excited. So if that's you, there's still plenty of time. And Morgan Smith had another comment for you. Hey, Gramps, it's cool. All you have is the Coleman lantern.
Oh, that's funny.
Back there with my candlelight glowing.
So good. I'm trying to read over here. All right. So let's hop into kind of the meat of tonight. I wanted to theme the show how to dominate August kayak bass fishing. And so I want to hear from everyone around here and kind of what you're catching fish on. But August bass fishing is interesting, right? And I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's a transitional month. No, the bass are, beginning of August, they're doing something. It could be much different than the end of August, especially when you get some of those cold nights. I feel like I'm already starting to get some cold nights, to be honest with you.
This year is so weird.
I have jackets on. I had a jacket on this morning, the entire morning.
We've never had this many tornado watches and warnings in cool summer. It's like, what is going on?
It is. It's crazy. I had a full day of rain yesterday. The temperature of the lake I fish a lot dropped 5 degrees.
Yeah.
And I was like, what it is, the bass were not there. I was not on them this morning. Yeah. Let's put it that way. And so what are they doing? And so let's talk about all this stuff so we can get a better understanding, so we can pick up, put some more fish in our yak. All right. So Gramps, Jeremy, hit me. What are the bass doing this time of year from the beginning of August to the end of August? What are your thoughts on that?
Deep. I'm finding all my fish deep. And when I say deep, it's relative to the body of water you're fishing on. One of them that I'm currently fishing is the deepest is 15 feet. The average is like 6 foot. So you find those holes where it's 10, 12, 14 feet, add a little brush to them. That's home.
There you go. So is that for the entire month for you?
That
Or
it
do you
is
start
for
doing
me.
something a little different?
Well, the fish are doing what they're doing. There's always going to be shallow fish. The majority of the bigger fish I'm finding are a little bit deeper, but this is also where I do a massive bait switch. I completely change the baits I've been throwing in the early part of summer, and I have a whole method of, well, like my frog. I go from a full-size frog down to a small frog. I'll go from a 10-inch worm to a fatter 8-inch like Ocho on a Magnum shaky head.
Mm-hmm.
And then no rattles in any of the baits that I'm throwing. I eliminate sound. My crankbaits have no rattles. My walking baits have no rattles. I only throw baits without rattles this time of year.
Okay, so walk me through you shared what you did. Share why you did it.
Well, I find this time of year, the frogs, if you look around on a rainy evening, there's going to be these little frogs. And I think it's just the bass know when the frogs are, smaller, easier to eat. So I have a lot more success on not just catch or getting blow-ups, but landing the fish on the small mini frogs.
Okay.
Rattles in crankbaits or topwater, everybody all year long has been throwing something that has rattle and making lots of sound.
Right.
If you take away the sound but give them the presentation, for example, my topwater baits have all been like sexy shad and bait fish looking. This time of year, it's all black. I don't know why, but black works at noon in the middle of the day, and it works great right before the sun goes down.
Okay.
In terms of, I fish a 10-inch Berkeley power worm 90% of the time, all the way from winter to now. And
Yeah,
now
you tell Jeremy bring 5 rods. He only needs one. Oh, here you go.
Yeah, I bring one. Well, 2.
Grandpa's...
I'll have a 7-inch and then a 10-inch of the same thing, and they'll eat one or the other. But the reason I change with my worms and go over to a shaky head, it's a more subtle presentation. You look at a 10-inch worm with a ribbon tail in this hot water, it goes zooming down past them, and they're like, no, that ain't natural. A slower, more subdued fits in this time when the water is so hot. And there again, you can catch fish on a shaky head from winter all the way around through the next winter.
Yeah. So for those who don't fish a shaky head, it's not one of those like mainstream. I mean, people fish it, don't get me wrong. But explain what a shaky head is, and
Actually,
more importantly, how do you
I've
work
got
it?
the one I have tied on right now, and it'll surprise you.
All right, let's see it. For those on the podcast, he left his chair and he's grabbing things. He's back. Here we go.
So JT's going to know exactly why, but he is the reason why I have this tied on for the next tournament I'm fishing. It's one of the big Magnum from Do It Molds with a big Ocho on there. And that chartreuse, I think it's the dumbest rig ever. That's what it should be called. But it flat out catches fish, and it catches big fish. And I haven't even told JT that I'm fishing that because I was too embarrassed, because I was laughing at him when he showed me. I
Okay.
was like, dude, you ain't going to catch nothing. And he goes on and catches a 20-inch fish on it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So for those listening in, what Jeremy
yeah.
was showing was the Do It Mold Magnum Ned finesse. It's a Magnum Ned, is what it is.
That weight was what? Like it looked like
It's
half ounce.
pretty good size.
It's
almost
about a
like
half
dragging a
ounce.
wobblehead.
Yeah, because when you think about the size of the Ochos, you know, being a bigger soft plastic than your average, and then that head, that's at least a half ounce.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I like throwing that is the Z-Man. It's literally a Magnum TRD.
Oh, I have one of those.
It's monstrous, but you know, we discovered this last year when I was playing with that head when they first came out with it, dragging it through deep humps and brush piles. And on a lake where, you know, we catch maybe an average of 15-inch fish, it's not known for big fish. I walk out of there with two 17-inch fish, basically almost on back-to-back casts. And it's like, okay, we got something going on here. It's just something that's a little bit different, but it's pretty awesome. I got to take 1 second to shout out a friend, Skid Pig from down in Australia. If you guys want to see some cool videos from a dude in Australia ripping it up offshore in his boat, go check out Skid Pig's channel. He's a long time. We've been following each other for a few years now, and he puts out some quality, entertaining fishing content from down below. What's up, brother?
I love it. Skid Pig. I love it. All right. So, JT, so when you're talking about shaky head, well, share kind of how you fish it. When you say slow, I mean, walk us through like we're a noob. Someone's tying this on for the first time. How are you locating these brush piles? What are you using? Where you look for? Where are you look for them at? Electronics you're using to get them, and then take me through all the way to the hook set.
Well, so Jeremy and I have been learning side scan down imaging for the last, a little more than a year now. Before that, we were very simple: Garmin Striker 4, water temp and depth. But what side scan and down imaging allows you to do is kind of patrol your lake or pond wherever you're at, looking for brush piles off in a 60, 70 foot range. And then when you kind of notice something, because it'll look pretty obvious, it'll look like limbs or things laying down. It's funny because, speaking back to side imaging, my first ever reel on Instagram to hit over 1 million views, which shocked me. Today I noticed that it was a video I put up last week showing a boat ramp that I was going over, showing the boat ramp and then showing the boat ramp on underwater.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing. So finding those kind of detailed things with side scan and then rolling over it with the down imaging just to look down and see where it's at. And Jeremy still does something that's pretty old school that a lot of people may not think about, is back in our boater days, we would carry marker buoys so that when we would see something, we would go over it, drop it in the water, and then you go back and you cast to it. And then as you're starting to drag the bait back through the brush pile, you're like, okay, there it is. My marker buoy might be off by like 2 feet, but in relation to where you feel the brush pile to where that marker buoy is, to start making those repeated casts. And it was so funny. I was telling Jeremy and Matt the other day when I was out fishing, I found this brush pile and I drag a shaky head through it. They weren't huge. I mean, I was catching dinks, but it's like every other cast I was pulling up a fish. Okay, let me try Texas rig. Oh, caught a fish. Oh, let me try free rig. Oh, caught a fish. If I'd have stayed there, I probably could have thrown a Ned rig and pulled one out of that brush pile. But, a shaky head is very much like an old school jig worm without the skirt. And it's just a stand up. And I like using floating Elastec, Z-Man products to keep that tail up in the air. But X-Zone and others make good stand up baits to kind of do that. But you're literally just casting past it and dragging it over either the rocks or a brush pile. And, you feel them thump your spinning rod pretty good. And we got turned on to this because we never really focused on it that much until we ran into Old Town Pro staffer Casey Reed, who is one of the top dogs, in kayak bass fishing at Kentucky Lake. And we just happened to be fishing the area he was in. And we got to talking to him quite a bit. And, you know, him and another guy, Alex Miller, they were just running around from spot to spot. A couple of casts, drag it over the brush pile. If they got bit, they got bit and moved on to the next.
Oh, wow.
But Jeremy and I said, okay, you know what? This is a technique we don't really focus on that much. So we had Casey come on a live stream a few months later, and he walked us everything about, you know, shaky heads, including the company that makes his, and like the whole technique with it too. But it's a very simple, very easy way, great for, you know, even bank anglers, because if you're using like a tungsten shaky head, you can literally drag it through the bottom and, you know, kind of feel, you know, everything. It's literally like it's I won't say it's like a Carolina rig, but you really feel the rocks. You can feel the changes in the surface if you're hitting, you know, rocks or wood or whatever. But it's a very cool finesse technique, but it's actually pretty awesome once you get used to it. And it's something that we've been working on, you know, adding to our arsenal. Because like you always say in your shows, practice things that you're not good at, you know, your non-confidence. And for us, that has been one of them, but we're actually getting better at it too. So it's not one of those things you have to have forward facing. You can literally do it, you know, with a little bit lesser technology, and, you know, a Helix 5 with side imaging, you know, at $300 or $400 will put you in that same, you know, ability that some unit, you know, that's $1,200 or $1,500 would do as well.
Yeah. So I ran the Garmin Striker 4 for a long time. Recently just upgraded. I had a video, you know, you saw that the install video for my Garmin EchoMap UHG 92 SV.
Yep.
And when I started running that on a lake that I fish often, I'm like, holy crap. I had no clue that that giant tree was right here. I rolled over it 100 times.
Yep.
Always cast to the bank, never cast to the right. And they're I know they're sitting in there, right? And then you run past, I never knew that was underwater. I never knew this, or this is what this looked like. And it definitely increases your game. It's a learning curve, right? You're looking at things, you're like, what in the world? What's that shadow? Is that a fish? What is this? But it is pretty incredible. And so what you're saying is that without side scan, it's going to be fairly difficult to find these brush piles, to fish a shaky head. Yes, no? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you could get lucky and go. Now, that being said, you can, if you're fishing a bigger lake where the state, say, plants, you know, we call them Hoosier cubes, which is a square made of pallets, or Christmas tree brush piles, things like that. Stuff where you can like study a map and say, okay, I go from the boat ramp over to this point and come off, and then I start dragging it around until I find them. A lot of people will throw Carolina rigs doing something like that. And some people will naturally find piles, trees, stumps, you know, things like that as well. And then sometimes you just run over them with your Striker 4 and you see little humps on the bottom. Right. That could be a log. You don't know which way it's laying, or a cut off stump, or a rock. But you start casting, and then when you start feeling things, then you start, okay, I'm sitting here. There's that tree off of this point. You kind of start marking it in your mind where it is. But again, you go old school and get like a buoy marker. Okay, I found something here. I'm going to drop this, and then I'm going to keep casting around that area. And eventually, as you bump off of cover, you're in a pretty good spot and a good chance of finding a bass.
Yeah. I made homemade DIY buoy markers, and people keep clowning me on them. Like, oh, I just use waypoints. I just waypoints. Like, it doesn't work for, I mean, I get it. Use waypoints to get to the spot. When you're in a kayak and it's windy and you roll by something, you know, it's 20 feet off to your right. And by the time you turn around, you could be fishing 15 feet off that spot and not even know it. So
most definitely
throw those bad boys. They're really easy to make. They're kind of expensive to buy. You'd be surprised. I mean, not expensive. We're like $15-$20 for, you know, a 2-pack, but for a pool noodle, a nail, a string, and a weight, you're good. You're good to go.
100%.
So shaky head, you know, you're dragging it like a Texas rig. However, I remember watching a Fluke Master video when I first heard about the shaky head. What the crap is a shaky head? And he just basically dances the line to get that action at the end. But he's like dancing it in place. We're talking about something a little bit different here. You're dragging it over brush piles. Yeah. Have you ever tried doing the, you know, basically just getting the action through dancing the line in one place? Has that been successful for any of you?
I've seen where some people hold the rod and hit the back of their wrist
Yeah.
and just let that action shake the worm. And you can do that kind of with the drop shot as well, just to impart a little action, keeping it in place, but also, giving it that action too. Sometimes they want movement. Sometimes they just want the natural flowing in the water. You just got, how it is. You got to give the fish what they want.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So if you're on and you're listening in right now on the live, we have around 40 to 50 of you on right now, which is pretty awesome. Let us know, what is it right now that you are using that you are actually not just catching fish on, but getting the larger size fish. So throw in, what is your, top one, top two. We'll read those here in just a little bit. Let's take a look at these comments. We had some people chime in as we were talking. So let me see here. Elizabeth, we were talking about August. She said, except in Florida, it gets worse in September. Ugh. We got Hook Life. He says sunrise, sunsets, night fishing is probably excellent right now. I believe that to be true because I was talking to Chad Hoover last week, and he's like picking up 6-7 pounders night fishing, which is pretty sick on top water. So, man, I need to do some night fishing videos. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So fishing during the day, he says fish deep, throw big baits, work them slowly. The fish's metabolism is high right now. They're trying not to use up energy. That makes sense. Oh, Elizabeth, that sucks. She says, pretty sure I broke my transducer. Side scan doesn't really work anymore. And side scan transducer, I know my what is that? 56 transducer, whatever it is. I mean, they're like $250 a pop. So that's a big bummer. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
Not cheap. Not cheap. Caro, she says, almost have hubby convinced to give me some sort of Garmin or something. Absolutely. It'll change the game. It really was. It's one of those, especially when it went from nothing to a Garmin Striker 4. And if you're out there running no electronics and you like that, then go for it. But if you're looking to up your game for $250 by the time you power that and buy it, and you buy the battery and the connections and the kayak attachment, you'll be surprised what it does for your fishing game.
It makes all the difference in the world. And Caro, tell hubby I said it's okay. You can get a Garmin, sweetheart.
Well, there you go. You got permission from Jeremy. So let's go ahead. Just don't even
tell
talk to him.
Eye Candy said it's okay.
Yeah. What's the budget? You gonna give her a budget too?
Oh no, he knows. He'll take care of her.
I love it. You guys ever heard this? Backwards 13 says, "Is it true you can put a toothpick in the end of a worm to make it float and to kind of stand up?"
That is an old school trick.
Oh, gee.
That is back there, back when Jeremy first started using glass rattles in the 90s. Wow. Yeah.
I was going to say, I kind of told a fib when I say no rattles. That's in like moving baits, because if you're not fishing a rattle in your soft plastics every time, you're missing fish.
Yeah.
So the Z-Man just came out with that rattlesnake thing. We can shove rattles into their baits. You seen that one? That came out of iCast recently.
There's always some tool to sell for somebody when you can just push it in.
The Z-Mans are tough to push crap into.
But to be fair, the Z-Man products, you probably need a tool to do that, because it's like a hole punch, all syringe, all in one too. Yeah. But that's the Lastech for you.
It's like a surgical needle. And I agree. I have some of those TRD, the big ones too. Perfect if you want that thing to stand up. So look at those bad boys up. All right, let's head over to the next question. Gramps, what do you got? What's your top? Oh man, I'm going to give you top 5. What's the top 5 that you have set up right now? Like, you're going out fishing tomorrow. What is on your rods? And does that stay all of August, or do you change it up like sometime in the middle of August?
Realistically, you got to play the conditions when they change, because like we said, this year it's been different. I mean, I can't normally in the heat of summer, you're going to have fish that go deep and stay deep until the thermocline pushes them up, because they like being in deeper water. You have fish that want to go skinny and stay in skinny water, and they'll be the ones up under your pads, your frogfish. And I'm sure I shocked everyone last weekend when I posted a picture of a frogfish. I didn't even have my frog rod with me. I literally tied that because somebody else pointed out, you caught a frogfish on fluorocarbon? Okay, they were smacking they were smacking, bait fish in the top of the mat. And I'm just like, I got to tie a frog on. I mean, I took my jig rod and tied a frog rod. I didn't have my frog rod that is normally my punching rig with braid.
Right.
But I just tied the frog that I happened to bring with me, and I was just dragging it over the mats. And I had that fish, which I caught rather easily. And I probably had 10 other good fish suck that frog under, but the mat was just so thick. When I go to set the hook, I come up with a clump of stuff, like this big. But that was, again, I wasn't planning on throwing a frog. I had one with me, but that was just the time dictated it, because whereas Jeremy's, he's fishing that water that's 6 feet deep in most places and may get deep to 15. A lot of the pits that I fish in can get 30 to 40 feet deep and then run up to like 5 feet deep around the edges of the pits.
Okay.
And then some of the areas that each one of the pits, it seems like, has a flat that's either connecting two of them or off to the side of it. So, the way I fish both sections is completely different. In deep water, I'm out there with a drop shot, a free rig, Jeremy's favorite Texas rig. I'm fishing offshore, probably in 10 feet of water, because they'll come up out of that deeper and push up onto those shallower, and then they'll stack up around brush or rock piles and things like that. And that's normally where I'm sitting there with, I'll go through them. I got my drop shot tied on.
There you go.
I love these
Like a robo worm.
I think, that's and I don't know what it is with this color. They love this thing.
Is that like tequila sunrise? What color is that? It's hard to see with your Coleman.
They call it morning dawn is what that is. So it's a very pinkish purple.
Okay.
And I got a new rod that I haven't talked about yet that I'm testing from American Legacy. So
I was wondering about that.
If you know,
it looks a little clean. Doesn't look that cork looks nice and light.
I don't think it's even been out to the water yet, but it will be soon. Next
real quick,
one
before we jump to the next one. So how do you fish your drop shot? When are you pulling that out every time?
When I'm fishing deeper areas, brush piles, things like that too. I use that one a lot around rocks. If I'm fishing around brush piles, that's when I generally switch to a shaky head. But I see my youngest is calling, doesn't realize I'm on a live stream, but he should know. So, but I'll pull shaky heads through brush piles if I'm fishing around rocks, or sometimes if there's a creek where it meets a lake, there'll be like a little pool. I'll drop it in there as well. But it's really just kind of a try one or the other and see what the fish kind of like. Sometimes they want it a little bit off of the bottom. Sometimes they want it just, taking along the bottom, dropping a little silt. And a lot of people will say that kind of imitates like a bait fish when it's, feeding off the bottom, kicking up little stuff too. So, it's one of those things. Wobble heads, you can be imitating a crawl, so forth and so on. But so one for when I just want it up off of the bottom a little bit, and then the other one for kind of more tangly stuff, if you will. And that's where I'll generally grab a shaky head.
So you're kind of using those interchangeably.
Yeah.
When you're pulling out one, a lot of times you may be pulling out the other shortly after if you're not getting a bite on the first.
Yeah, I generally carry a couple of spinning rods with me, or I'll throw a shaky head on my. A lot of the times, the shaky head's on a different bait caster.
Yeah,
and it's I won't call it BFS, but it is lighter line, and that's what I'll throw a Senko and other stuff on as well, or skip.
So you're like 8-pound fluorocarbon on your shaky head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eight. I'll go from 8 to 10. Normally, 10 is probably about. I use 8-pound. It's a leader. It's not something I'm fishing with usually.
Got it.
I know high hopes and aspirations for big fish, but
Jeremy, what were you going to say?
They make 8-pound fluorocarbon.
I know.
I start out at 15 and then go to braid.
All right.
I don't understand this light line and I don't know, just ain't me.
I always use 8-pound fluorocarbon for my spinning setups for Senkos and stuff, but
really,
I jump quickly to 17-pound for a lot of my other bait caster, the Yamatanuki, which I'll talk about in a little bit, jigs, that's all 17 up there. So it's either 8 or I usually jump up 15, 17, or 20.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. But just spinning though. I mean, I don't break out anything. Anytime I go over, when I hit 12, I always go to baitcaster, right?
Right,
Using
right.
12-pound line. And I get questions like that a lot. That's why I said that. All right, keep going, Grandpa. I'm gonna call it Grandpa. Gramps. I like that better.
So that was kind of one of the deeper, if the fish are pushed up on the banks or they're chasing bluegill up on the banks. My other favorite this time of year is the good old fashioned black and blue Senko. And, I like it on a weightless Texas rig with that ringed EWG hook.
Okay.
I love that because it helps it fall and gives it a little nose down action, but I can also twitch it and pop it. And it actually gives it a kick like a fluke. So I'm actually getting multiple presentations out of one bait because I can just let it drop or I can pop, twitch it. And that the ringed action on this thing just fires them up. And then, another rod that I haven't revealed yet, that the title of the thumbnail on this rod is going to be, is a $720 rod worth it?
Ooh.
That came from Graham, and it's in upper and lower case.
I don't think I've ever touched a $750 rod before.
This dude's going to give me a heart attack. He puts this stuff in my hands and
You
says,
have to
"Hey,
give
go
it back,
fish with
don't
this."
you?
And he's like, "Go fish with this and tell me what you think." I was like, "I think I will never own one," but yeah.
You need to get to the point, Gramps, wherever they're like, "Here, take this. It's yours." After you do a video, when is that time coming for you?
Realistically, I can keep anything he gives me. That's part of my deal. But I like trading. I like trading in Arsenal here and there quite often, just because it allows me to do more reviews, do more. If I want to compare rods that are from Walmart to Lamborghini, then I need something as a reference point. And the G Loomis Conquest line is just insane, super sensitive. But this is not realistically. This is a 7-foot medium heavy fast action rod. The kind of utility for me, I don't think that me testing this one is going to give you the real feel of what a Conquest could be, because you want something that's like really sensitive. I would expect that I would do that like with a jig rod, or say a Texas rig rod, where you're kind of really dragging stuff on the bottom. But I could throw finesse jigs on this as well, and throw some small tungsten heads jigs on there and get a feel for it too. So that's probably what I'll do to kind of get a real idea. But it's it's a million times overkill for Senko spinner baits, skipping tubes, things like that. Right. If you're going to fish something like this, you're a pro who's dragging something very, very specific on the bottom contact type rod. But I've tested everything from Walmart up to the Gran Turismo craziness too. So that makes it kind of wild.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to get your hands on those so you have a good basis for what you're actually, one of the Instagram, I had Tackle Talk on. We both know Andrew. Yeah, you're the one who put me on to Andrew.
Yeah.
And one of my, I guess it's called Instagram Reels, is going crazy because he talks about, he just makes a statement. It's in the context of a longer conversation. And basically you're not going to appreciate, going from an ugly stick from Walmart to a $650 G Loomis. People lost their minds in the comments. Like, I think because he talked about ugly stick, and that's a common rod that a lot of people use, and people defended their ugly stick like to the death.
Oh yeah,
it's fascinating, but it was interesting.
It's like those people who think yum dingers are good. It's just You
mean these right here?
Yeah, I got my bag right back here too.
I literally, check this out. I went fishing in Central PA for smallmouth. I caught 175 fish.
Yeah.
On a yum dinger. Red.
Yeah. You got your 20 cent Amazon link purchase from old Gramps, because I followed your link. It's like, let me help out the old affiliate marketing over here. He's got taxes to pay. Let me help him out.
Got to write the write-off, folks. The write-off. Yeah, I got the they have watermelon red flex for $26 a bag of 100 recently. It's crazy. All right, moving on. Keep going, Gramps. You gave me 2. Keep showing me the juice.
And of course, if back to skinny water again, because I'll go back and forth. The key is this time of year, and it's literally you have to be. It's luck of the draw, being on the right water at the right time when they're actually schooling up and chasing shad. And Jeremy and I've been talking about this all week. It's just a matter of hit and miss. And it's like, it's never the same time of the dang day. So you can't really patter them. It's really just the luck of the draw. So last Thursday, when I was in that live stream and we were on a body of water with three other anglers, and I saw the shad schooling up and being busted right behind one of the other guys fishing. And he was too busy running the stream to notice them behind him. And that's when I grabbed ye olde jackhammer and proceeded to catch big bass of the event, right, 20 yards behind his kayak.
That's amazing. That's one of the best feelings.
So we were fishing with no electronics, but I was not side scanning. I was side to side scanning, watching for topwater activity. And when I saw a flutter of like 20 shad come up to the surface, I'm like, oh, somebody's on them. And I grabbed the remote, buzzed right over, got within about 40 yards of where I'd seen them, and then started whipping this in there, and probably 3 casts in, caught that fish. You talk about calling your shot on a live stream, in a live show during the event, the old jackhammer was right on the money. And as soon as one of the other guys was like, oh, it's jackhammer time. And, everybody who was smart enough to bring a jackhammer as one of their 3 choices, was we were starting to smack them really good.
I'll bring that bad boy up here. You got a white. So for those on the podcast, what are they looking at? What's that trailer?
Okay, so this one is the actual, Z-Man jackhammer. It's in the spot remover color, so it kind of it's a very shad. It's gray on the top and white on the bottom, so it's patterned correctly. And then the trailer that I like to use, so there's 2 of them, but that day we can only pick one. So I chose the bigger of 2. This is the 6 Cents Flush, which is basically their version of the Fluke, but it's got, I don't like the paddle tails on the back of a chatterbait unless you rig it upside down. But this thing just hunts. It gives so much action, and it actually matches the size of the bait fish, the spawn, shad this year. And it's just right on the money. And had I had the option to fish it in another technique, I literally would have taken it off and fished this weightless, because there was so much more grass in this lake that I thought there would be. But if I could have taken this off and fished it weightless, I probably would have just smashed them, because I just really wasn't expecting that much grass in the lake that we were in.
Okay.
But worked out like a champ. And, it's one of those things. But, I see comments like, yep, the Senko sucks, too expensive and tears too easily. But when you catch a $500 or $1,000 bass because of it, I don't invest in what I invest in to fish in tournaments, because if you think about it, I mean, a lot of people recreationally fish, and I get that too. Jeremy and I do that often. But when you're fishing for a check or, big trophies, we have a lot tied up into it's called the Kayak for a reason. That my whole setup just in the kayak itself is it's a pretty healthy investment. So if I want to fish, Senkos versus, like, say, a Berkeley General that I think breaks too easily, then yeah, the Senko's going to get it. But I buy them in bulk, so at least I'm trying to save as much as possible.
Yeah.
But that being said, you can always reuse them, melt them down, and pour them into a do-it mold and do it all again. I mean, we talked on your last show, about the 4 different uses you can get out of one Senko, so it worked out really well.
Right. So for those that weren't on, you got your, Texas rig it.
Yep.
And then when that rips out, wacky rig it.
Yep.
And then when that breaks, if you still have your worm, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You got 2 Ned rigs. Boom. Yep. And then when those things become all gnarly, you melt it down. And if you want some videos how to do it, head over to Fishing with the Gramps. And Jeremy, I've seen you guys doing videos where you're doing your old molds from Do It Molds. So
Oh yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I've been. My whole setup right here is strictly for tying jigs, soft plastics, crankbaits, painting them, all kinds of stuff.
Nice.
I like my do it molds.
Oh yeah.
I need to get into that. It's for me. It's going to be a winter project for me. So maybe in the future you might see some of that stuff. I mean, I have a collection of plastics that are actually destroyed. Can't use them for anything. I need to melt them down and give them a second life. I think that'd be kind of fun to do. Bass Ackwards 13 says, I would absolutely appreciate a G Loomis.
Yes,
But
you
he
would.
also said, I am on the Walmart level. Laugh out loud. Yeah, be completely honest with you. I have Walmart rods still in my rotation, and I also
Okay.
have $300 rods in my
Yep.
rotation. So I don't know.
We all started in a Walmart kayak with a Abu Garcia Black Max. It's just where you start and how
Yeah.
where you want to go.
I was just joking. I was on that fishing trip with a buddy. We were in Central PA, two of us, and like 5 years ago, I rolled in with like a rhino rod.
Yeah.
And I mean, we smashed on it, but that I remember the weight. I can almost still feel how heavy that thing was.
Yeah.
And so if you do it all the time, that stuff starts to matter. And as you get older, that stuff starts to matter a whole lot. What were you gonna say, Jeremy?
I was going to mention, people talk about the cost of rods, and especially with G Loomis,
Mm.
but I have two in my arsenal that are over 25 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I had them repaired 6 months ago just to add them back in because I couldn't live without them.
Yeah.
So break down the cost of how much did that cost me each year for 25 years, and that makes it real affordable.
Yeah.
Yep.
You take care of them.
But I mean, and some people do that. You're working overtime or whatever. You treat yourself once or twice, and then you're living really nice for a lot of years after that too. So it's just one of those things. I call it buy once, cry once. And you have to get to a certain point, especially if you're raising kids and doing other things. Yeah, that makes it hard. But you got to work. If you're working that overtime, sometimes you gotta invest in yourself sometimes as well.
Yeah. Only cry
Oh,
once.
cool.
So I get it. All right. So I was doing some little bit of research before the show, and I was like, okay, some of the guys who are known for their lures and dialing those in, and known for, you can almost like clockwork. These are the lures you throw in August. These are the lures you throw in July. These are the lures. So Tactical Bassin's one of those, and Fluke Master does those as well. So give me your thoughts on these. Are their top 5. Tactical Bassin's like a top water. They have swim jig, shaky head, and drop shot. I know what your feelings are in the two. And then Fluke Master, a little bit different. So buzzbait, he breaks out the whopper popper. I think he actually refers to the Chapo. Swim jig, Senko, Texas rig, and the giant worm. So any thoughts when I rip through those, top 10, top 12 lures? What first comes to your mind?
I avoid it. I avoid throwing what they say to do on YouTube, because that's exactly why I don't fish a wacky rig. Okay, ever, because everybody and their brother, if you go to a lake, they're throwing a wacky rig. I'm going to throw something completely different because the fish get conditioned over, so many seeing the same thing. The stuff that worked 15 years ago works better than what they're saying works now for me.
Yeah. So when you hear someone like, hey, there's a top 5, you were like, okay, those are the top 5 to avoid.
Well, there are certain things you can avoid. For example, I could say a jig should be a top 5 every month of the year, because jigs just flat out catch fish every day of the year. So it's when they start saying, well, this is when you do this and this is when you do that, that translates to me to everybody and their brother who watches YouTube is going to be throwing these particular baits. And I'll go so far as to say they'll look at the picture or the thumbnail, and they'll go out and buy those exact baits that are on the thumbnail because they want to make sure they're throwing the right topwater, the right buzzbait, the right worm. So I avoid throwing whatever's trendy.
Oh, interesting take on that.
Yep.
Interesting. Gramps, what do you think?
Well, and this is why Jeremy and I have been such great partners over the last many decades of team fishing together, this and that. It's like a lot of people know that, if they follow, it's always chatterbait, chatterbait, chatterbait. That's all you hear. But Jeremy is probably the only one that will tell you, if I can only choose one bait to fish year round with, I know his would be a 10-inch power worm.
Right.
If I could only fish one bait all year round, Jeremy, what would it be? I'll grab it and then I'll show it to him.
Well, you're not talking chatterbait. That's out, right?
Yep.
Spinnerbait.
Well, not a moving bait, because if I'm throwing a moving bait, it's a chatterbait.
A jig.
But if I'm throwing one bait, year round, and I can only throw one, and I had to catch a fish, it would be a jig. This one just happens to be a Strike King tungsten with a Missile Baits D-bomb on it. But realistically, a chatterbait, it's a bladed jig, so that still falls in my thing. But it jig for me, worm for Jeremy. It's just the way it is. But then we both do things. He'll throw braid, I'll throw fluorocarbon. We've always done something a little different because his power fishing is different than mine, and we always complement each other too. So it's just one of those things where if a worm's not doing it, then he's not going to tie on a jig for the most part. He's going to grab a baby D-bomb or a D-bomb and throw it on his Texas rig, because that's just what he's used to doing.
Yeah, makes sense. So last month, and toward the end of the month too, so I still have it tied on. My top 5 bass for the Knucklehead, they got a 21.25, and the other 2 were 19s. Were caught on this guy, the monster bass. I think this is a 3/8 ounce peanut butter and jelly
J. Yep,
jig right there. And the trailer I put on that bad boy was the KVD Strike King, the rodent. Let me take this out.
Yep, that's a
green
great
pumpkin
combo right there.
Green pumpkin. Let me see. Black fleck, and this thing just boom. I caught 2 4.5 and a 5-pounder within like 20 minutes of each other. So when this was on, it was on. So
those little monster bass, tungsten football heads
right there, man. Tell you what,
that's a sleeper that I don't talk about a lot too, because that's giving up some real, but you could drag that thing through rocks or whatever, and you feel it all too.
I found these particular bass on a ledge. So I'm always looking for, and specifically in August as well, if I see the water go from 10 feet to 5 feet, and it takes 100 yards to get there, that's not where I'm fishing. I'm trying to find where that water depth is really tight when it comes to contour. So we're going like 15 to 8 in a matter of like 20 feet. Or 10 feet sometimes, and that's where I'm finding them. So really quick, before we're coming to the end of the live show here, it's been a lot of fun. We kind of went tactical a bit, which I really, really love. And I really believe this will help a lot of people kind of dial in their August fishing. They might be like, okay, I got to untie this and potentially tie on something. Or if you're like Jeremy, I'm going to listen to the show and not listen to the word they say and tie on something different. But so what are the bass? How are they reacting right now? Where are you going to find them in, let's just say, lakes and ponds? Because I would imagine that's the majority of where kayak bass fishermen are going to be fishing. And what are they doing in the morning? What are they doing in the heat of the day? And what are they doing in the evening? Who wants to tackle that one?
Well,
I'll tell you, your big fish are going to be caught in the middle of the day.
Okay, keep talking.
That's just the heat of the day. If you want to, you got to suck it up and take lots of water, and you can catch more fish evenings and mornings, because the morning bite really is just a play off of the overnight bite. And Sly Fox is a perfect example of that. He's been smacking them on a spinnerbait night fishing quite often. But those cooler sections of the days, but those big dogs are generally, they're not jacking around with trying to compete with the little fish, you know, they're going to go do what they want to do. But a lot of them are doing it in the midday or in the middle of the night. And, you know, again, it's just being there, right place, right time. But, you know, people say it's a lot of luck, and it really is. You know, you got to be there when they move up to start chasing. But yeah, they're not wanting to expend a lot of energy, you know, if they don't have to. So if they're there and they're doing it, you know, you might get into them like I did the other day. And but yeah, like Cooler Lid is saying, make sure you cover up from the sun if you're out there if you're out there in the heat of the day.
Yeah, Sly Fox, hey, I've been killing them at night, including that 21.25 inch.
Yeah, that was a nice
That's
fish.
that's a big girl. Big girl.
Yeah. Both of you caught my PBs and passed me by a 1/4 inch. So that's good on you and Sly Fox with those 21 1/4 inch donkeys.
That's for Ohio. That's a big girl.
fish.
And he's in Ohio too. So yeah.
Right on. I love it. So here's kind of my thoughts, and then Jeremy, I'll pass it off to you. What happens in August? At least it's my experience, right? So in the morning, right when there's that low light, bass are roaming, right? They could really be anywhere. You find them in shallows. Usually that's where I fish them in the morning. I just run a bank, and usually I can get some nice ones. But I got good news for you. Whenever the sun comes up in August, a lot of those fish, in my opinion, they move to the shadows, right? They're trying to find, and the big ones, like they're in the shadows next to deep water.
Yep.
And so if you're trying to dial in, okay, I'm in the Knucklehead. I need to start putting up some big fish. I can catch little ones all day long, but I need to catch some big ones. Find the shadows, especially for fishing in the middle of the day, next to that where I caught them on the jig, 1919 and 21, wherever that water goes deep to shallow, and look around, try to find the cover. I believe, especially towards the end of August, they're moving a lot from the grassy cover to kind of like hard cover wood. Some of that lay down stuff like that is where I have a tendency to find them. At least I've been finding them recently. And so if you can dial that in for your body of water, and I know a lot of us are thinking right now, I'm sure, literally imagining the place in your brain where those fish are like hanging out at this very moment. And so that's where you're going to want to be. That's where we're going to be tossing in August. That's just my experience. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Jeremy, your thoughts on where they're at right now?
I agree 100%. Shadows are where the biggest fish are going to be, and the deepest, darkest part of the shadow is where you should try first. But there again, I think also the deep water is key, because I have this spot that's a roadbed, and there used to be a bridge where the creek ran underneath it. Well, they took the bridge out, then they flooded it, so you've got a roadbed with really good grass definition, but there where the bridge used to be, it drops off into 10-foot channel, then comes right back up. It's very sharp drops.
Oh, wow.
I was out there a week and a half ago. I told JT, I'm only fishing from noon to 3. The hottest part of the day where nobody wants to go fishing. I got to the lake at 11:30, on the water by noon, off the water by 3. I caught 3 19s, an 18, and 2 17 3/4.
Come on now.
In 2 hours.
Dang.
And they were in 4 foot of water with 10 foot of water, literally 2 feet away. It dropped to 10 foot.
Yep.
They were coming up, eating it, and running right back into that deep water. And it was a cycle. They would just continue to move up and eat and then back down. So when you find the fish are schooled up, which they're normally schooled up by now, Indiana's been weird. They didn't really school up. They should have last month. They're just now schooled up where I'm starting to find schools instead of picking one off here, one off there. Because you get into
at the beginning of the show too. I was going to say at the beginning of the show too, you talked about where we're starting at in August and where we're going to end in August.
Right.
And the key thing, especially for those in boats and kayaks that are off of the bank, it's that later summer pattern when that thermocline starts coming up, and those fish are suspended off of the bottom, that's when you're going to be sitting them, watching them sitting 8 feet down, and you're going to want to grab those crankbaits and those jerk baits and twitch, and tearing them up. So again, if you got your electronics and you're out on the water, those are the things you're going to want to watch for, because, like, again, the shallow fish will still be shallow, but those dudes who like to live and stay deep in that cooler water, that oxygen depletion is going to change, and it's going to push them up, because they will not sit below the thermocline. They bass, catfish, carp, the rest of them, they don't care. Bass, they want to stay above it. So until the lake turns over, when we get more towards the fall, and that's probably August going into September, but this year has been weird. So we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on that too. So that's another thing you'll start noticing on your electronics, especially your down imaging, when you start seeing that fuzz in the water that's 3, 4, 5 feet off of the bottom. You'll see that's the thermocline starting to come up too. So that's something that you want to watch for as we get towards the end of the month, going into September as well. And those fish will, they still like staying in that cooler, submerged, being down there. But that's when you want to start grabbing those deeper running, jerk baits, and, fishing that 8 to 10 foot, mark as well. And I've got one particular pond. I'm kind of waiting for that to happen, because I know there's some big bass in there, and I saw it last year, and I haven't been back there yet this year, but I was kind of waiting for the conditions to get similar so I can go back and try something last year that could potentially land me a PB, because that's something I'm still chasing this year, is a catch PB. And I'm going to be out there putting those electronics to work too.
2 things, since you mentioned your catch PB. What is it now, and what do you need to use to beat it? And 2, use the word that, people use every once in a while, but maybe misunderstood. So explain what thermocline is and how it affects bass fishing, and how you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah. First off, my catch PB is 21 inches. So, that's what I'm actually trying to beat this year. Now, the thermocline, it happens every year. It's just part of nature. There's oxygen levels in the water, and I guess the easiest way to put it is that the lakes they'll turn over, and so the thermocline is the level of oxygen that sits kind of at the bottom, but as it depletes, it'll start rising to the top. And there's a new cycle of it, probably I think twice a year, maybe one like kind of over winter, and then another, the summer is where it's most prevalent. But as the oxygen levels at the bottom start to deplete, it'll kind of rise up, and then it pushes the fish up with it, because they want to be in some place where the water is really oxygenated. It's not as prevalent in like your skinny lakes with a lot of grass in it, because the grass actually introduces a lot of it. You'll see this more in lakes with deep holes, or like a lot of the strip pits that I fish in. And but the thermocline, and I actually did a full length video on this, and so I'm trying to repeat something that it's something I kind of wrote a script for last year.
Right.
But the oxygen level will come up, and eventually it'll come up into the surface, and then the lake will then turn over. That pretty much kills fishing for, I don't know, Jeremy, 7 to 10 days it seems like, until the fish settle back down. And it's weird, because then like oxygen will fall back to the bottom of the water. It's kind of a weird process, but there's better people than I that can describe it. But I did a good video on discussing what it all is. But it's just one of those things that you can use it to your advantage, because it pushes those big fish that are out deep more up to the surface until the lake actually finishes turning over, generally around right before that big fall bite really kicks off, because that's also one of the triggering mechanisms for the bass, along with the lack of sunlight and the conditions changing, that they know, hey, winter is coming. It's time to start slamming everything that I can. And that's when you grab that chatterbait mini max and
here we go
to town and just tear them up.
Here we go. It's going to be some really great fishing over the next 3 months. Really great fishing. And almost as pumped up as I am when May rolled around.
Yes.
So good. All right, I'm gonna finish off with this question. We're over an hour, and we usually land a plane here. But I had a comment come in, and I want both of you to answer it for me. It comes from Bass Ackwards 13. He says, and this might be a lot of guys and gals out there, I follow all the quote unquote rules and guidance, and I just can't get on them. What do what would you say to bass backwards?
Start throwing a 7-inch worm with a glass rattle and become proficient at it, because that's the quickest and easiest way to find them, to catch them, and you know, and I say a worm, there's a lot of things with other baits that you have to think about and retrieve and cadence and rhythm and all the different things that you have to build over years that you're doing to trigger bites. When I can put a worm or a rod and reel with a worm on it in a guy's hand, and they're catching fish by the end of the day. Learn one technique, whatever your technique is, learn it really well, and you will catch more fish, and you'll feel like you'll have that aha moment, and that leads to the next aha moment, and the next thing you know, you're on them all year long.
Yeah, and there's so many.
Gotta start.
Yeah, and even though I love a jig, Jeremy's right. It's 7-inch Texas rigged worm. You can drag it, you can pop it, you can swim it. You know, you can find something, but there will be some bass somewhere that is gonna, you know, it doesn't matter if it's 6 inches or, you know, a 20-incher.
Yep.
It's gonna smack them. So the other most common one that I feel is very similar to that. That if I was going to say, you know, if you're just want to cast a reel, grab a spinnerbait.
Yep.
And throw it in every direction and just keep casting and reeling between one of those two baits. You're going to catch a fish, and it's you know, don't think that because we all go fishing all the time and we make YouTube videos, you see the hours of you know, footage over a year of all the fish that we catch. You're not seeing the months of footage where we're out there doing anything but catching fish. But pay attention to your surroundings. I know a lot of people that listen to music and headphones and you know, other, you know, I've done it too, some ball games and all that too, but pay attention to your surroundings. Watch the birds, especially if you're in a kayak or a boat. If there's birds there, they're feeding on bait fish. Those bass are feeding on those same bait fish. You know, if you hear something smacking on the water, check it out. You know, bank anglers, you're limited to a lot, but you know, the key for being a bank angler too, though, is be patient. Make as long a cast as you can and take as long as you can dragging that worm or a Texas rig crawl or something back to you too. But learn to feel what's on the bottom. Learn to know when you're coming over a log or a rock or, you know, different structure underneath the water. And, you know, you kind of just get in tune with nature too. But it takes patience. But that's part of the game. You know, we don't go out and catch a 20 every month. I mean, it's you know, I've had a month of dinks and then I'll catch a 19. You know. Am I going to catch, you know, 5 19s in a row? Or no, I don't have that much time to fish. But, you know, if you have the ability to be on the water, that's just increasing your chance every time. You know, you catch those little ones, and then, you know, any bite that you get can be your smallest fish or your biggest fish ever. And that's really what keeps us going back.
Yeah. So when I hear this, I follow all the rules and guidance and just can't get on them. A couple of things come to mind. For me, it's really easy to hop on YouTube and get discouraged really fast. I'm reiterating kind of what Gramps just said, because you might come to a channel or someone you enjoy, and it could be one of our channels, and you see fish like posted every day in the community tab. I don't catch those every day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna disillusion the whole thing, right? I have probably 40 photos in queue ready to post. Yes, I do catch a lot of fish, but it's because, and I think this is key. And Scott Vermonter said something. He said, some have been too much adulting, not enough fishing. And this is it. And if you're someone who's just going out, and it's great, and you're a weekend warrior, and you might get out a couple weekends on a Saturday morning, and maybe some ad hoc here and there, and you're fishing maybe 5-6 times a month, then it's going to be really discouraging watching someone or following someone like, well, to be honest, like me, I'm out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the morning before work at 5 o'clock a.m. a lot of times. And putting in the work, putting in the time in the water is going to greatly increase. But I'll be completely honest. I was out this morning. I had 3 on the line, lost 3. I got skunked for the first time since I can remember. It's been probably since the beginning this season. I don't think I've been skunked until today. And that's just, a couple of weeks ago, I was catching 19s and 20s. And so sometimes they're just not biting, right? Or you're not in the area where they're at. And so it happens to the best of us.
What did you learn the day you went out and got skunked?
You mean this morning?
Yeah.
I really haven't.
What did you learn from it though?
Yeah, this is a great question. I teach in my videos. The goal isn't to go from 1 to 100. The goal is to be 1% better than when you went out last time. So I love that you're asking this question. So it rained all day yesterday. I mean, all day. I mean, you guys are in Indiana. You probably got that before I did. And it would not stop raining the entire day. And I keep track of the water temperature, and there's a 5-degree drop in water temperature. I was like, all right, interesting. It's like a cold front. I was wearing my jacket all morning. It's typically known to put the bite off. And man, what did I learn? Really, it was more revolving around weather conditions and what that may or may not do. I feel like a lot of the places I have been catching them last month, they're not there anymore. So they moved. Probably to some offshore structure, fishing a lot of banks and getting real good luck on them. But they moved somewhere. And so I've been thinking about, okay, where could they possibly be if they're usually here? They're probably close by, just where. And so this is back to the conversation now that I have side scan with my Echo map. I'll say, okay, they're not to the left of me where I usually cast. They're probably just right there on that hard cover that I can see on my side scan. But I've never fished it. I never broken out the shaky head or dragged a Texas rig over it to find out. And so what I learned is I need to grab some of my DIY marker buoys, throw those in the side of my kayak, and try a little different way of fishing, because what has been successful in the last few weeks wasn't successful this morning. So I got to try to up my game a little bit by trying something a little bit different. So that's what I learned this morning. Great question.
And that makes it worth going, because if you learn something, whether you catch them or not, I had a day the other day, I got skunked.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, nothing's working. So I put down the rod and I went scanning and was doing grid scans, because my goal is to learn something new about a lake I'm on. And I pulled up to this one section. I'd fished like 7 hours at this point, hadn't even had a bite. And pull up, see something on my side image. I flip to it, bam, 16-inch fish. I'm like, really? I wouldn't have done that in the past. I would have tried to force what I wanted to do and try to make them bite.
Yeah.
But you don't ever force, I want to know what do they want to eat, and then I'll give that to them, instead of I'm going to catch them on this chatterbait, because that's my thing. I can't catch fish on chatterbait. Yeah, my brother won't teach
me frogs, him chatterbait. Yep.
So, well, 100%. I love that. Right. So it would have been really easy for me to be like, I'm out of here and just leave. I did try out a few more things. I went out to the middle and started scanning around, utilizing my time. Since they're not going to bite, might as well learn something. Right.
Exactly.
So keep that in mind. And now I
will tell you, he was on the phone with me when I caught that 20 last month.
Yeah.
I was frustrated, nothing bit all day long. And it was in the middle of the afternoon. And I was like, I'm just going to go scanning. And then I did. I spent the next half an hour. I found a rock pile, pulled up on it, backed off, and started casting to it, threw a free rig around these rocks, and then doink, and there it was. And I'm literally on the phone with him saying, yep, this is what happened. So it was just one of those funny things.
Yeah. Well, we're at 1 hour, 19 minutes, guys. This has been a sick show. Thank you so much for hopping on, sharing a little bit of the juice with everybody. Hopefully this brings some elevates the game a little bit, right? If you can come to the show, learn maybe something new you can try out, and you land a fish, man, that's a huge freaking win. So thanks for stopping by.
If you would, real quick, JT, can you kind of mention that just so people will know where to see me fish on Thursday?
We'll do that tomorrow night.
Do that?
Because this is going to go to a podcast. But we're going to be live tomorrow night with Blues and Strike King at 6 p.m. But yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow night for everybody for the other show you're on.
And head over to Fishing with Gramps. Do you guys have a YouTube channel for Two Brothers Outdoors or Two Brothers Fishing? How's that?
We have, but we haven't started uploading content to that. That'll be coming. That's going to be a very specific channel for outdoor adventures.
All right.
So it's going to be no tackle talk, no reviews, no bait. It's going to be us out doing the stuff and things.
All right. I love it. All right, guys. Next week, I got Alex Folguera on the show. So we're going to be talking, I'm sure, kayaks, right? He's known for doing reviews of kayaks. So that'll be good. So I'm pumped about that. Next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, JT. I'm sure we'll have you on in a month or two because I absolutely love these type of shows. So thanks for bringing it, and we'll see y'all next week.